production of WNVC, Channel 56, Fairfax, Virginia.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And that I will obey the orders of the Governor of Virginia and of the orders of the officers appointed over me. According to law and regulation. So help me God. Thank you.
Congratulations. Naturally, the performance of the Guard, and it really is outstanding. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. They're number one in the nation. They came from being in the mid-30s just 2 years ago. They came to number 2 last year. The Army National Guard number 1 this year. The aviation component is doing the same thing. I expect the same caliber of performance out of the State Guard. And so I think all of us who either have a military background or certainly are Virginians are proud of the accomplishments of the Guard and both the National Guard and the State Guard. I see a great future for them, and it's a number of patriots who want to continue to be identified. As you know, the State Guard is not paid. They get no remuneration of any kind. They do it out of a sense of patriotism, loyalty, and pride.
I'm Major Jim Davis of the Virginia State Guard. We have an update of the new Virginia State Guard for you today. We have with us Tom Sherwood of the Washington Post, Major General Albert Morris, our commanding general, and Major Bob Ewell, operations officer for the Maritime Brigade. We also have a toll-free number that you may want to use in reaching the new Virginia State Guard, which is 1-800-572-3019. There's also a Richmond number that can be used, area code 804-344-4117.
Hello, I'm Tom Sherwood from the Washington Post, and welcome to the program today. General Morris, let's start right off by telling people what is the Virginia State Guard?
In federal parlance, the Virginia State Guard is known as a state defense force. We in Virginia will call it the Virginia State Guard. It is a force brought into being before the need for the force rather than after the need, simply a prudent idea to have the force in hand before it is needed, as a replacement force for the Virginia Army and Air National Guard should they be federalized and withdrawn from the state as a tool of the governor. The governor would have no further control of them if they were federalized, and he does need a backup force.
Major, you'll tell us what kind of force are you looking for? How many people are going to be involved, or do you want to be involved?
I believe our limit is approximately 2,000 people in our initial cadre. And we're looking for people from all occupations, all backgrounds, to flesh out the cadre at this time.
We've just seen a swearing-in ceremony. Can you tell us, are you recruiting now? And if so, where can a person go if they watch this program and they think they want to join up? What does he or she do?
Well, they can go to any one of their National Guard armories, where literature is available for them and an application form is available for them. That's Virginia National Guard armories. Post offices have an easel display which have the applications therein and an informational pamphlet. Certain commercial establishments that are chain stores, they will also be there, drugstores, grocery stores, and the like. In other words, and there is available an 800 number, which is on this pamphlet, if they require further information.
Do you happen to know that number? It always never hurts to give the number.
I don't have to call it. I've already belonged, and I've forgotten the number.
Good enough. Tell us, what would will it be Army? What will it be?
It will be an all-force situation. The contingent missions that might be assigned to the Virginia State Guard include some territories that are considerable water. There's considerable water involved in it. We also will need aerial surveillance and aerial liaison work. And so we will have basically a light infantry division reinforced with an aviation brigade and a maritime brigade.
So do you have the planes yet? Is that something, who would you be looking for? Former
yes,
pilots?
The aviation brigade was the first unit that we brought on mainstream in this organization because we knew that they had to pick up some assets, some flying assets. We have been very, very fortunate, and the great heart of Virginia has opened up to us. We have now 73 aircraft with pilots
Good.
available to us in an emergency.
Major, tell us something about the naval aspects of the
Maritime
Guard.
Brigade of the State Guard, yes, Tom. You know, all the states have been asked to form these type of State Guard organizations, and I think it's unique that the State Guard in Virginia has recognized not only the need within the state for a multi-service type of organization, but also the many talents of all the people within the state. And we have the Aviation Brigade, and we also have the Maritime Brigade, which taps the resources of the many people who work on the waterways in the Chesapeake Bay and along the tributaries of Virginia. And we've been able to use these people, bring them in a support role, supporting the ground forces, providing assistance to the National Guard and other local forces as necessary.
All right, I want to get to something key here for a lot of people these days. How much will a person get paid for being in the Virginia State Guard?
Well, we're very fortunate in that regard. Everybody gets paid the same thing as a commanding general, nothing.
All right. And what type of commitment can you look for, and what a person might want to join up? Will this be monthly meetings like the National
We
Guard?
anticipate holding initially one 4-hour assembly per month. Essentially, it will be on the fourth weekend of the month on Saturday morning from 0900 or 9 a.m. until 1 p.m.
Once a month?
Once a month.
All right.
Now, we're having everybody at assembly at that particular time for communications reasons. The National Guard has been kind enough to let us use their telephone net and their telephone sites. And so we're able to communicate then at least once a month with each other without too much tumultuous costs.
Well, the National Guard is so well known. One of the things the National Guard does is have summer training camps a couple weeks out of the year.
Yes.
Do you anticipate that you'll be doing any of that?
Not initially. Initially, instead of the long 2-week period that the National Guard operates with, we will probably have a long weekend of 3 to 4 days annually.
All right.
The entire force will not be together for that, or we do not have a facility in the state that can accommodate the entire force. And to get back to the figures, the 2,200 people that the Major was speaking of is simply a cadre, a hardcore cadre, well-trained cadre, if you will, well-qualified cadre. The full strength, the end strength, is 8,200 people.
Do you have a goal at when you'll reach that full strength?
The goal to meet cadre strength was 1 October. We've already met it.
Oh, well, good. Major, tell us something about the types of people you're looking for. Who do you want to come knocking on your door?
Absolutely. We can use people from essentially any walk of life. We need men, we need women, we need people with civilian skills as well as people with prior military service who may have something in their background, their military service, to directly contribute to the State Guard. We also need people who have legal expertise, public affairs expertise, the watermen who have boating, navigational talents, individuals who may have towing and salvage experience actively. And we also need people who want to learn, whose only expertise is a willingness to contribute. I'm sure there are many people out there in the state, particularly those that live along the waterways, who've always wanted to be out on the water. And this is an excellent chance for people to receive some training, become qualified crew members on Virginia State Guard craft, and participate.
It sounds like you're going after kind of the same pool as the National Guard. How are you going to divide that up? Do you have any sense of who will go to the National Guard and who would come to this Guard?
Yes, let me delineate. First, we are not going to accept people who have registered for the draft. Should there be a draft, they would immediately leave us and be of no further service to us. They, however, are available to the National Guard as enlistees or appointees in the National Guard. Should they be in the National Guard, then they have volunteered their federal service rather than waiting for the draft. In the veteran category, those people who still have an obligation to Uncle Sam are not to be considered by us, for certainly Uncle Sam has first call on their services. So those whose contact with Uncle Sam has now ceased as an active thing are our meat. They are the people we're looking for.
It didn't sound like it might be a somewhat older force. Is that right?
Older and extremely younger. The mean ought to be about the same.
All right. Okay, good enough. Now, what would the, again, if I were to join up, what do I supply other than my enthusiasm and interest?
Your enthusiasm and interest, we'll supply the rest.
Think that goes for uniforms or?
Should you enlist, yes, we expect to issue you a duty uniform. That is coming from Uncle Sam, by the way. That is expressed to us in the form of intent. It's not a promise, but it's a desire on their part to assist us.
This will be a formal military organization. What will someone do? Will they sign up for 6 months or a year, 2 years, or will it be indefinite? How will that work?
The normal enlistment will be for 3 years for enlisted persons. Officers' appointments will be indefinite.
Well, let me, if I were a master sergeant in the Army and I had retired and still wanted to be active, would I also be an enlisted person in the State Guard, or how would you determine who's going to be the ranking officers? And Major, you might answer that question.
You have an option, of course, to retain the same rank you had as before, and we have no intention of demoting anybody by bringing them into the State Guard. However, for an individual such as a senior enlisted person, E7, E8, E9, who has some of the critical leadership skills and some of the critical military skills that we need, there's an opportunity there for a direct commission in the State Guard. Here's a fine opportunity for an individual who served his country well in the enlisted ranks to move up into the commission ranks of the State Guard.
I guess we could say there's no boot camp that anyone has to attend for this, right?
Well, there will be for people with no prior military training. We'll have to teach them to salute and step off with their left foot, and look like a soldier and wear the uniform and observe the normal amenities and military courtesies. Other than that, boot camp will be a breeze.
What would be a likely duty? What could you conceive as a likely duty? Natural disasters?
Let's take a small beginning. We could hunt for a lost child. We could assist the local and state police to recapture escaped prisoners. We could perform security duties in connection with a natural disaster and life-saving duties in connection with that natural disaster, such as flood, or tornado, hurricane, and that sort of thing. We would be prepared to protect Virginia's key industry. Let me make a few pointed references there. Certainly the citizens of Virginia are entitled to have their source of electricity protected, just as they are entitled to have their water supply protected. And as far as is possible, their communications facilities, such as the telephone company, protected. Now, this brings into focus the reason for the all-service force that we're raising. Most of your electric source comes from either hydroelectric or nuclear-powered stations. They are involving water. For instance, on the James River, the Surrey Nuclear Power Station has a very large and wide water side. We can provide the exterior security on the fence line with walking soldiers, but we've got to have some bottoms. We've got to have the boats to handle the water side, and that has to be a 24-hour situation. The same thing is true of Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company and the Norfolk Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company. Those people are involved from time to time in federal contracts. Newport News is most all the time in federal contracts. There's 1.5 miles of waterfront. There are many means of ingress into the area which could be observed by aviation in daylight hours and with infrared equipment at nighttime hours. We need that surveillance from aviation. We need that security from Army around the fence line, and we need that security from the water side by the boats.
Now, who is going to define this mission, and whose responsibility will it be to call up the Virginia State Guard?
Our Commander-in-Chief is the governor. We exist at his pleasure, and it will be his duty to call us up if needed. He or his appointed representative. One of his appointed representatives might be the Adjutant General of Virginia. And I want to, before I pass away from the Adjutant General of Virginia, I want to lend to this interview my heartfelt feelings about the support that we've gotten from the Virginia Army and Air National Guard via the Adjutant General of Virginia, Major General John G. Castles.
Major, you could tell us, you mentioned earlier that all the states have been asked to initiate these state militias and state guards. Where did that come from? Who was pushing that idea?
The federal government did, Tom. The thought was that it was put to the governors of all the states. What are you governors going to do when we do mobilize your National Guards? Are you prepared to take over out-of-state assets those functions that you might now call out your National Guard for. So in a sense, we act as a reserve to the National Guard, and I believe in also an augmenting force, particularly in those areas where the National Guard, State National Guard, might not have certain assets. For example, the waterborne assets.
Now, anticipate training in these monthly meetings that you'll have, they will be held all over the state?
Yes, the training essentially will be held at the National Guard Armories for the light infantry forces. The aviation forces will probably train at their respective airfields, and the maritime forces at their respective marinas or docking areas.
And just how formal of a military organization will this be? You'll have a chain of command, I presume. And,
We will operate with the normal chain of command. The RHIP principle, rank has its privilege, providing he treats it kindly and correctly. Yes, we will espouse the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
that was going to be one of my questions, because I know that while this is a voluntary group, and you're going to get people who want to be there as opposed to perhaps being drafted or having no other choice, you will have military rules of conduct.
Don't expect to have to use it. With this classification of people, totally volunteers, what pure motive could there be? I don't have to question the motive of anybody in this force.
Are there any particularly critical needs at the, how old are you now? You're just, just a matter of months old, is that right?
Actually, we were created on September the 14th by order of the Adjutant General and the Governor on September 14th, 1984.
So you're just over a year old on
just
paper.
over a year old, and we are, well, we've already got the cadre.
Okay. Do you have any critical needs at this point in terms of a particular person that you're looking for?
Yes. The last of the organizations which we have brought into being is the Maritime Brigade. Now, the Maritime Brigade will require assets, either privately owned or corporately owned. I'm speaking of boats. We plan to form 5 boat battalions within this Maritime Brigade of either heavy boat, medium boat, or light boat capacity.
Maybe you can tell us what a heavy boat is.
A heavy boat would be 50 foot or better long and would have accommodations for a crew. It would also be radio and radar equipped for deep water operations. For less deep water operations, a medium boat company, which could be comprised of smaller tugboats, for instance, commercially owned, or pleasure craft of the cabin cruiser power boat variety, which can hold 5 or 6, hold a security force in addition to a 2 or 3 man crew.
Major, if I had a boat, if I had a 50-foot boat, I might be on it right now. But if I had a boat like that, would you, could I donate my boat, if not myself, for you to use?
Absolutely, you certainly could, and we have a form that's available through the Naval Brigade headquarters for you to fill out, an extensive form asking you the characteristics of your boat, your willingness to submit it to Coast Guard inspection, your ability to muster a crew as well as yourself and the services of your boat. And I think you'd find the folks very receptive to hearing from you.
Now, again, we'll talk about the National Guard. Does it have a maritime contingent also?
No, it doesn't. It depends upon the Coast Guard Auxiliary for its maritime forces.
Right, now, does the state itself have any boats or vessels that you can use?
The state has some vessels, but they're not devoted to defense purposes.
All right. What will be the selection process? Once I fill out the form, send it in, who looks at it, and when would I know that I'm a member of the Virginia State Guard?
The form, should you fill it out and submit it to centrally to our headquarters at 501 East Franklin Street in Richmond, it would be submitted to the geographical commander. Those people that have a water connection, that would go to the Maritime Brigade commander, and he would form it down or pass it on down to one of his lower commanders for evaluation. But at his level, it would be evaluated, and the worth of the person and the equipment that he brings to the thing would be then adjudged, and his place more or less assigned at that time.
This is a true voluntary force. Is there somebody that you're not looking for? Can a state employee, a state government, or the federal government, civilian employee, join the Guard?
There are no restrictions insofar as employment is concerned. I think it's suitable, however, that we can't get too many law enforcement officers involved in this thing, because we could decimate a police force if we did. This police chief has got to have his force intact for the same reason that the state guard exists. The security of life and property within the Commonwealth.
And I would also guess you're doing minority recruitment. You're opening the doors to everybody in the state.
To everybody in the state. Yes, sir.